In the early 1600s, when the British East India Company first landed on Indian shores, few could have foreseen the profound impact their presence would have on the subcontinent. What began as a quest for trade gradually transformed into a bid for dominance. Through a combination of cunning alliances, military might, and strategic manipulation, the company steadily tightened its grip on India's riches and its people. The turning point came in 1757, after the Battle of Plassey, where British forces defeated the Nawab of Bengal, marking the true beginning of large-scale British control. By 1858, following the tumultuous Indian Rebellion of 1857, the British Crown took direct rule, and India officially became a jewel in the British Empire. Life under colonial rule was a study in contrasts. The British presented themselves as harbingers of progress. Indeed, they introduced railways, telegraphs, and new legal systems. But these developments primarily served their own economic interests, creating networks to move raw materials out of India and flood the local markets with British-manufactured goods. Age-old Indian industries, especially textiles, were decimated. Markets that once thrived on the skills and creativity of Indian artisans became desolate as British goods dominated the shelves. Harsh taxes and exploitative land policies forced farmers into debt and despair, leading to cycles of famine and poverty that scarred generations. Social life, too, was fundamentally altered. The British education system privileged English and fostered a small class of English-educated Indians, creating deep social divides. While a few gained new opportunities, millions remained marginalized, their voices unheard in their own nation. Despite great wealth, Indian hands had little power in governance, and any calls for reform were often dismissed or suppressed. Yet these very conditions sparked the fires of resistance. By the late 19th century, a new class of educated Indians began to question British authority. With the foundation of the Indian National Congress in 1885, Indian voices at last found a platform to demand greater rights and representation. At first, these efforts were measured and peaceful, focusing on negotiation and reform. However, as obstacles and betrayals mounted, such as the controversial partition of Bengal in 1905, calls for genuine self-rule grew louder. Disillusionment only deepened after World War I, when Indian soldiers fought and died for Britain, only to find their hopes for equality dashed upon their return. Within this growing movement, extraordinary leaders emerged. Mahatma Gandhi, inspired by the ideals of nonviolence and civil disobedience, led millions in acts of peaceful defiance. His Salt March in 1930 became a beacon of hope and a demonstration of how unity and nonviolence could harness incredible power. Jawaharlal Nehru, destined to be India's first prime minister, envisioned a future built on democracy, science, and secularism. Subhas Chandra Bose, meanwhile, championed a more militant resistance, rallying the Indian National Army to fight against colonial rule. Even as World War II raged across continents, key events underscored the urgency of independence. The Amritsar massacre in 1919, where hundreds of unarmed protesters were killed by British troops, united the nation in outrage and grief. Later, the Quit India movement of 1942, Gandhi's bold call for immediate British withdrawal, mobilized mass protest and civil disobedience on an unprecedented scale. As the Second World War drained Britain's resources and moral authority, internal pressures and the demands of an awakened Indian populace became impossible to ignore. At last, on August 15, 1947, India achieved its long-awaited independence. The joy of freedom, however, was tempered by tragedy. The partition of the subcontinent into India and Pakistan unleashed waves of violence and chaos, uprooting millions from their homes. But even amid suffering, the birth of an independent India marked the triumph of the human spirit over oppression. India's road from colonization to independence is a story of resilience, sacrifice, and the enduring belief in justice. It is a powerful reminder to the world that, even in the darkest of times, unity and nonviolence can conquer fear and lead the way to a brighter, freer future.